So I'll start by paying my respects to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. So I usually don't plan my talks. I just like to, whatever comes to mind, I like to feel the vibes of the room. What is it that compels us to continue on thinking the way that we think and seeing the world in the way that we usually see it, and keeps us in our predictive behaviors and reactions, and going from life to life too? Coming across each other over and over and over again, coming back to the human world over and over and over again. Whether it's in the macro level, in our journey throughout samsara, throughout the universe, or from just one instant to another. It is the same thing that keeps fueling these mental, emotional, behavioral patterns over and over and over again. And that is this thirst that we have. This thirst for pleasant things, right? And this kind of thirst for not wanting to experience unpleasant things. And the thirst itself for experiencing. That in itself is a thirst to want to experience. So it is this thirst that fuels our thinking patterns, our perceptions, and our behaviors, and our speech, our lifestyle, and where we're reborn in the future. But it all starts at a very subtle level. Like in seeing. In seeing, there's some appearance that comes up in seeing, and automatically, it seems like in that very same moment that it is seen, there's some sort of feeling, right? There's this kind of taste to it of whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, whether we like it or don't like it. We don't evaluate it. It's so fast, this thirst. It's like when you touch something that's hot, right? There's no reasoning. Oh, this is hot, it's dangerous, I need to move my hand away. Automatically we react. Why is that? Well, in this life we were conditioned. When we were small, maybe the first 2 or 3 times we touched something hot, we learned we shouldn't touch hot things. So in a similar way, we've been conditioned to go after what is pleasant, what we like, and to move away from what is unpleasant and what we don't like. But this conditioning is a lot deeper than touching something hot, that reaction that we learned in this life not to do. We're bringing it from the past life, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 500, 1,000. Countless lives, this conditioning of wanting things that we like and pushing away things that we don't like. So we bring this pattern into this very life when we continue doing it, right? If you live with someone long enough, you know their likes and dislikes, right? Before you even ask them, as soon as the situation appears, you already kind of have an idea what this person's going to do, what they're going to choose. Mothers know this about their children, right? They already kind of know what this child likes and dislikes. We're very predictable. Even to ourselves, it's very obvious at times. But it's interesting that even if we know, right, and it's predictable, and even if we know that this pattern is unskillful, unwholesome, we still do it. We still do it. I think that's why the Buddha used the word tanha, right? It's deeper than a desire, right? It's not a desire in the sense like a wish. Oh, I want this to be that way. I don't want it to be that way. It's like when you feel thirsty. It just happens to you. Next thing you know, you're thirsty and you need to drink. And whatever you do, you get in your car, you drive to the coffee shop, or you go to the convenience store, or wherever you go to get a drink to satisfy your thirst. It's not like you look at the time, you're like, look, it's about 12:30 in the afternoon. This is a good time to be thirsty. Then you feel thirsty, and then you're like, okay, now I should go get something to drink. No, the thirst just happens, right? Whether you like it or not. The liking and unliking just happens, whether you like it or not, because you've been conditioned. And then sometimes we make the mistake of saying, well, this is the way I am. That's just the way I am. That's the way you are. Which is true. This pattern is really deeply embedded in you. That is true. But it's not the original, your original self or the original state of being. Or always the case. Even throughout samsara, through our journey, we've changed our likes and dislikes. In this very life, maybe you were able to change some of your likes and dislikes. Maybe some things were very difficult for you to confront when you were younger. You couldn't stand it, and now you learn to be okay with it. Like children with vegetables, right? When they're small, they don't even want to touch them. And then later, when you start getting old, you're looking for vegetables all the time. You know, you're like, oh, this is so good. This is what I want. I don't want to eat that other stuff is bad for me. It's not healthy. What's interesting about the child is that since children are very sensitive in the sense that their health they haven't built up a good immunity and their bodies are not that strong, they're actually able to perceive bitterness a little bit stronger. And all vegetables to some extent are bitter. So it's not that they just don't like it, but they actually experience a stronger sense of bitterness than adults. As we get older, our taste buds for bitterness become reduced. Yeah. So children actually, it's more disgusting for them. And, it's harder. And especially if you give them bitter melon, that's going to be horrible for them.
I love it.
Yeah. Another interesting fact that doesn't have anything to do with this Dhamma talk is that people from the Indian subcontinent have a special flavor bud for bitterness. They've evolved to be able to taste more bitter things. You don't find it in any other population in the world. So it's like it's an adaptation they've made. Just like other cultures have made adaptations to like milk, keep drinking milk after. Most mammals, right? Virtually all mammals, after they become adults, they stop being children, they stop drinking milk. It's only humans that keep doing it, right? And only after time, some humans evolve to, keep drinking milk. And most humans in the world actually are lactose intolerant. Like most mammals in the world, because it gets turned off. So, we have these things. But we carry these things. We carry these likes and dislikes, and they change, right? Some of them are more embedded to our karma, because the Buddha said this body is the result of karma, right? So if you're born from somewhere in the Indian subcontinent, you having this special taste bud for bitterness has to do with your karma, right? If you're born lactose intolerant like me, it has something to do with my karma to some extent, right? That's just to show you that these patterns, right? These systems goes very deep. Why do I say this? Well, in order to be able to manage our life and manage the situation, or to be able to solve a problem, we need to understand the problem, right? We need to understand what is happening here, and not just throw our hands up and be like, well, that's just the way it is. This is just who I am. Right? I've always been this way. That's the way the world has always been. That's the lazy approach. That's the leaving it for later approach that the Buddha said we need to avoid. His last words, right? Apamada. Don't be pamada. Every time we say, this is the way I am, you met me like this. This is the way I am. Right? This is the way things are here. You need to adapt yourself to this country or this environment. That's just the way things are here. We're being pamada, being lazy, being negligent. We need to be apamada, the Buddha said. Diligent. Don't be late. Don't delay. Now, you can change. The whole reason the Buddha taught us about dukkha is not to throw our hands up and be like, oh yeah, samsara is dukkha, it just sucks here. I'm just going to make the best of it. No. Dukkha is to be understood. We have to understand the suffering. And then we're able to see the causes and conditions for our suffering. Right? And then once we see, we're able to kind of mitigate or maybe even completely eliminate at some point the causes and conditions for our suffering, which is this tanha. Right? This thirst, this impulse, this urge. Almost like an instinct that's in there. And it's not only for seeing, it's for tasting, touching, smelling, everything. We are so deeply conditioned that as soon as a sight, a sound, a smell, a taste, a touch, a thought arises, we have some sort of feeling about it. But the feeling in itself is not even that bad. What makes it worse is that when a pleasant feeling arises, we want it. Stay. It needs to stay. From wanting, we go to clinging. Right? It's not enough just to want it. I want to hold on to it. Never let it go. You're never leaving me. Right? This is my house forever. It will always be mine. That's what causes us suffering. All the dukkha. Same thing the other way, right? You see something, oh no thanks. No. You haven't even tried it. I don't need to try it. I already know that I won't like it. Right? You had some sort of feeling about it and right away you push it away. And then you see yourself, I'm a person who doesn't do that. Right? You identify yourself with that aversive feeling of not wanting it. I'm a non-exercise person. I'm a person who doesn't really take care of their diet. I'm a person who, I'm not a good reader, so I'm just not going to read or whatever, right? I'm not a good meditator. I'm just not going to meditate. That feeling, that aversion, that discomfort that arises when you try to meditate, then you begin to identify with that. And you're like, oh, it's not for me. I'm just a non-meditator, right? Or I'm just a non-chanter. Or I'm just a non-sutta studier, so I won't do it. So the Buddha is inviting us to investigate these things. Investigate your likes and dislikes. Don't take them for granted. There's a beautiful sutta called the Dvaita Vitaka Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. And there the Buddha, before he becomes a Buddha, he does a radical experiment. Right? He doesn't take anything for granted. He says, let me find out for myself what is skillful and unskillful. So then he divides his mind in half. And he says, on this side, on one side, I'll put all thoughts of greediness, anger, and violence, cruelty. And on the other side, I'll put all thoughts of renunciation, which means like letting go, and non-hatred or non-violence, which means loving kindness and compassion. So he doesn't take these things for granted, that this is bad or this is good. He wants to find out for himself, is this good or is this bad? I don't want to take anyone else's word on anyone else's authority. I want to find out for myself. So he investigates his dislikes, those things, the things that people say that is bad. So he meditates, right, on this desire, on this sensuality, on this greediness, on this craving. And he sees, actually, I just felt worse. When I kept bringing up this greediness, right, this sensual desire, I just kept feeling worse and worse. My mind just got more obscured. It wasn't good for me. You know what? I know for myself now that this type of thinking is not good. Puts it to the side. He does the same thing for anger, the same thing for cruelty. Then he knows for himself, this type of thinking is not beneficial, right? My unwholesome states did not decrease, but they increased. And my wholesome states decreased and did not increase. Put it to the side. I don't need that. Then he went to these other types of thoughts, which most people say are good, but he wasn't going to take anyone's word for it. I'm going to practice for myself. So he practiced nekama, avyapada, avihimsa, right? Renunciation, non-anger, and non-cruelty, which is just like generosity, loving kindness, and compassion. And he meditated on these, and he's like, oh, this is so pleasant. This is so nice. My mind has become very clear for these, right? And he goes, so I know this is beneficial for me. My unwholesome states decreased and did not increase, and my wholesome states increased and did not decrease. But some of us never take the time to investigate. We see it on the news, right? We see it on our phones. Someone tells us when we're very little, they said, in this book it says this is bad and this is good, right? Or you had some experience as a child and you're like, well, because of this, I know that this is good and I know this is bad. And we never went back to reappraise the situation. But we should always be in a constant state of reappraisal because the world is changing. The world is dynamic. There is no nicha in the world. There is no stability. The world is unstable. Anicca. Right? Usually we translate it as permanent and permanent. It's not a bad translation, but a more literal translation is stability and instability. Our likes and dislikes are unstable if we examine them. If we don't examine them, this is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. That is avidya. You're ignorant. You don't really know. You're just taking it for granted. You personalized. You've identified with that feeling. That is the upadana. And you've identified with it because you like it. You want more of what you like. Wanting more of what you like is the tanha. And the liking itself is the vedana. And the vedana comes from what? From cognition, from the experience. Passa, right? From the six senses. The salayatana. So knowing how the system works, now we can apply the most instrumental tool that the Buddha gives us, which is sati. It's a tool, right, that we use within the context of the Dhamma. Sati outside of the context of the Dhamma becomes miccha sati, not samasati. If we use sati within the Dhamma, within the Noble Eightfold Path, within the Buddhasasana, then it becomes samasati. So we use this sati, and we direct the sati to our eyes, to our ears, to our nose, to our mouth, to our body, to our mind. And then we can see when the eye comes in contact with the form, right? There arises the eye consciousness. With the eye consciousness in the form, then there's this moment of contact or cognition or experience, phassa. When you cognize something, right? When you experience something, then there's some sort of feeling that you have to that kind of experience. You feel some way about what's been cognized. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Here's where you need to be careful, because the next step is where the dukkha comes. I like this, I want it. We automatically jump. No analysis, right? No analysis most of the time. So we always need to practice indriya samvara. Indriya samvara means guarding your senses. Knowing this, knowing how we built these patterns, how we're always giving in to our likes and dislikes, we need to develop indriya samvara, guarding your senses. What does that mean? Well, what it doesn't mean is that you close your eyes all the time, you have your ears covered, your nose covered, your mouth covered, your body covered, and nothing's going to come in here, right? And that's what a lot of us try to do when we go on retreat. That is our excuse for going on retreat. I'm going to block out the whole world. But you don't live there. It's an artificial environment. Eventually you're going to have to come out, and the first thing that happens when you come out of retreat, what? All these people again, all these noises, all this thing again. So, did that meditation even help you? No, because it was artificial. It was fake. It has some therapeutic purposes, at least for those few days you feel calm. All right, some relief from pain. Is it going to help you understand what's actually happening to you in the everyday life? Maybe. From what I've heard from most people when they come out of retreat, no. Within the first day that they come out of retreat, they have some complaint. Right? So yes, there's a lot of benefit to getting symptom relief from going to a retreat. At least for a day or two, you don't have to feel all this pressure. But that needs to translate into something in the real world. You need to bring all that knowledge, all that experience into the real world. When you step out of that meditation center, sati everywhere. Mindfulness of seeing, mindfulness of hearing, mindfulness of tasting. Right? All these type of mindfulnesses. Because as soon as you come out of the retreat, you're going to be like, Hungry Jacks, right? It's time to go. It's time to go to McDonald's. It's time to go get a little coffee. Right? I did my work. I did what I needed to do. Now I'm going to go back on TikTok now and do all these things because it feels good. That thirst for the feeling good comes back right away. Because we let go of our sati. I'm not being judgmental here. I'm making an observation. On Friday nights at Harris Park, right? We do meditation. As soon as we finish the meditation, it gets super loud. All that calmness, all that mindfulness that you develop, in less than a minute, you just throw it out the door. You don't maintain it. So what good was it for you? What good did it do you? Yes, for 20 minutes you were peaceful. Okay, that's nice. But you could have just taken a nice warm bath. That would also give you 20 minutes of peacefulness. Right? You could have gone to the spa. You could have got a foot massage. You could have got acupuncture. There's so many things to bring you comfort. But what we're trying to do is go beyond comfort. We want to be free. We want to reduce our suffering. We want to reduce our cravings. In order to do this, we need to understand this process. We need to understand the problem and work on, the causes and conditions to eliminate the problem, and also causes and conditions to help us thrive. Positive and wholesome conditions to create those too. It's not only about getting rid of the bad, but also cultivating the good at the same time. So we have to start where we're at, literally starting where we're at. Where are we at right now? Here. Where are we? We are listening. We are seeing. We are smelling, tasting, maybe some of the food you have left over. Right? Are you feeling with your body? Yes, some of you have already moved. That's how you became uncomfortable, right? You're also feeling with your body. So we start here, right where we're at. What can we do right now where we're at in this moment? Leave all the theory to the side. Leave all that kind of technical, theoretical stuff to the side. Just look at your experience in this very moment, right? Bring mindfulness to all your senses, your 6 senses, and see what's happening. See how there's pleasant and unpleasant feelings arising all the time. Definitely right now in your bodies, especially for you, the ones that are sitting, right? Be aware of that. Be aware of the discomfort. Maybe if you had a lot of food and you're sitting in the back, you feel a little very satisfied, right? You feel, oh, this is so good, pleasant sukha vedana, and you want to fall asleep, right? So comfortable because you ate so much. Be aware of that. There's where you're at right now. Be aware of this feeling. Maybe my loud voice, it bothers your ears. Oh, little painful, dukkha in my ear. Be mindful of that dukkha vedana in your ear right now, my loud voice. Right? Here's where we're at. And see how from hearing, tasting, and smelling, there comes liking and disliking. And how this liking pushes us towards wanting more of it. And holding on to it. And identifying with it. That's what we become. So actually the practice of the Dhamma is an ongoing practice. Meditation is not at the temple. Meditation is not on retreat. Meditation is not in your 20 minutes or in the morning or night. Meditation is from the moment that you wake up to when you go to sleep. Ever mindful of everything that you do. As soon as you wake up, you become aware of your body, of your feelings, of your thoughts in that very moment. Most of the time when we wake up, we just kind of like a zombie crawling out of bed, right? Not very mindful of what's going on. Not even considerate about the person who's sleeping next to us. I'm just going to go to the bathroom first, forget this person. You know, they have to use it after me. That's their problem. No, from the moment that we wake up, we bring sati right away to protect us like a shield. We need that shield to protect us. Because how we start our day is going to set this pattern, right? There's going to be a pattern that's going to happen throughout the day. And how you start the day is very important. So start it off with sati. Instead of starting it with asati, no sati, mindless, avijja, zombie. Then the rest of the day you're going to be in zombie mode. And if you're in zombie mode, it's going to be very easy to doom scroll. Because that's what it is that's zombie mode. Right? Or just watch Hulu and Netflix all day, Amazon Prime. That's zombie mode. You just lay there. Of course, if you wake up in zombie mode, you're going to continue zombie mode. And since the morning that you wake up, do something mindfully. If you want to be a very good Buddhist, sit in meditation in the morning. Right? Or clean your house in the morning as soon as you wake up. That's a good mindfulness practice. Start tidying up, doing everything very nice and calm and mindfully. Right? Or better yet, if you have a partner, do something nice for them in the morning. Make them a cup of tea, a little coffee, maybe a little snack. Maybe you see there's something unorganized on their part, you help them out, you fix it for them. You help them get ready. Right away from the moment that you wake up, bringing up that mindfulness to guard your senses. We don't want to jump on the news right away first thing in the morning. Right? All this drama straight into your mind sets the tone for the rest of your day. Just giving into your likes and dislikes. We don't need any training in fueling our likes and dislikes. We do that automatically. That is our default state. Right? So try to do something different. Has your life been working out for you the way that you wanted it to? If it hasn't, try something different. Don't be stubborn. Right? Don't be stubborn. My mom always accused me since I was a little child that I was stubborn. And then later when I was 21 or 22, I had a Chinese girlfriend, and she's like, "Oh, you're the year of the ox. That's why you're so stubborn." You know, using that Chinese astrology against me. She's like, "That's why your mom would say that." But it made a little bit more sense now, right? I could blame it on the Chinese astrology instead of owning it for being stubborn, hard-headed. So don't be stubborn. Right? Open your mind up to changing for your own benefit. If you don't like the way your life is going right now, do something to change it. We're so scared to make changes in our lives. There's where the Dhamma really matters, right? As I was saying earlier, it's not about the cushion, it's not about the temple, it's not about going on retreat. It's about your everyday life. There's where you live. You don't go around cleaning other people's houses and come to your own dirty house. Unless that's your job, right? That wouldn't make any sense. You want to make sure you have a clean house. Then go out, you can clean other people's houses. So instead of expecting everyone else to change according to your likes and dislikes, all of you guys need to change for me. This world, the government, the systems, everyone needs to change according to what I like and dislike. You guys have to work around my problems, right? My own conditioning. No. If you want other people to change, you need to change first. We need to be in the light in the darkness for those who have eyes to see, the Buddha said. Right? We have to be the example for others. So if we want to see change in the world, we need to change. And it starts with something as simple as just when you wake up, be aware. Be conscious of how you wake up. Be conscious of how you put on your clothes and your shoes and how you brush your teeth, how you wash your face. Be mindful of all these things. These are things that the Buddha told us. It's in the Satipatthana Sutta. He talks about how the monks put on their robes, right? How they carry their bowls, how they go to the bathroom, how they chew. That is Satipatthana, right? We can practice all the time. And it's important that we practice in our everyday life because there's where we live. If we create something fake it's very difficult to bring it into our everyday lives. So little by little, to the extent that we can, we need to try to bring what we learn on the cushion, what we learn at the temple, what we learn on retreat, to our everyday lives. And have realistic expectations. That's another thing about people. Very unrealistic expectations all the time, right? I need to be an arahant by this year. 2025 is the year of arahant shit for me, right? The intention is good. Good intention. Bad expectation. We can have that intention, right? This year I will try my best. My intention is to become an arahant. Understanding that most likely it won't happen. You can have both of those at the same time. They don't contradict each other, right? One is seeing reality for what it is, and the other one is the motivation, right? To do something about the way things are. Do something about the way things are. So if you catch yourself always craving, always full of aversion, you can do something about it. Start with something small, like in the meditation earlier. For those few minutes, 10, 15 minutes max, don't move. Don't wiggle. Just be there with whatever is. It's easier, it's tolerable to deal with a little bit of discomfort when you're sitting down like this in a nice cushion, or in a chair. It's very difficult to deal with discomfort out there in the world, when someone's shouting in your face, when someone cuts you off, when someone pushes you, when someone steals from you. That is very difficult for you to be, I am the Buddha, right? I am very calm, I'm a good Buddha. It's difficult if you've never even learned to not wiggle your toes, right? If you can't stay still for 10 or 15 minutes, how are you going to stay still out there in the world? It's a jungle. It's like a storm. It's a tornado out there. So we start on the cushion, learning not to give in to our likes and dislikes, right? And then we move off the cushion, and when we interact, like in events like this, dana ceremonies or at the temple, we try to carry it around. So when you get off the cushion and the meditation's over, and we have to eat, or it's time for tea at Harris Park, we try to take it with us. Okay, now this mindfulness that I develop, I need to practice it out here in the real world. But it's still a safe place because everyone's working on it too, right? It's not like when you go outside in the streets, maybe you're the only one practicing mindfulness and no one else is. So that's like you're moving from a very controlled environment, which is you up by yourself on the cushion, the ideal state, to a controlled environment that has more variables. So everyone eating and drinking tea or cleaning up in a Buddhist kind of event. And then you go, okay, now when I go home, maybe you're fortunate enough to live with someone else who, maybe if they're not Buddhist, they also have some spiritual practices. Maybe I can practice with them because they have some sort of understanding. More variables there. And then from there, maybe you can take it to your work or to school, go out in the streets. But there needs to be this kind of gradual training, right? This gradual expansion of our sati into moving it off the cushion to our everyday lives. Meditation shouldn't be an escape from the real world. It should be a way to engage with the world, right? Just like when the man insulted the Buddha and he was screaming and making all these accusations of the Buddha, Buddha was always mindful, sati sampajanya, the whole time, clearly comprehending and mindful of what was happening. And that's why he wasn't affected. But us, we are out there, maybe no sati, so when they tell us something, we're like a tiger ready to jump, right? Or we're like a possum and we just, faint. Or we run away, right? This whole like fight, freeze, or flight, or fawn, and all these different reactions that animals have when they're faced with danger or some very strong experience. We get back into these patterns. Many of the times where I've come across people who most people would consider difficult people, I don't do anything. I just have sati sampajanya, metta, and karuna. And I don't even really show it. I just have it inside of me. And just me not reacting in the way that they thought that I was going to react, in the way that most people react to them, calms them down right away. They open up. So even people that have told me that they've murdered people, that have done very horrible things and other crimes, even those people, when we have sati and sampajanya, we give them the opportunity to see what's going on with themselves and the opportunity for them even to break their patterns, right? So maybe you don't have motivation to practice for yourself. Maybe you don't care about yourself that much. A lot of people have low self-esteem. Maybe you don't really care about yourself. You say, oh, Bhante, who cares if I practice sati or not? Whatever, I don't care about myself. I don't care about this life. Well, you live in this world with other people. Maybe you can care about them, right? If you don't care about yourself, maybe you care about your mom or your sister or your friends or your neighbors or your dog or your cat. For their benefit, give them the opportunity to be insightful and be introspective. Give them the opportunity not to feed There are habitual patterns by doing something different. Maybe you won't do something different for yourself, but maybe you can do it for others. So whether it's internal motivation, external motivation, whatever works for you, or both, which would be the best, to get you to practice. What is this life worth to you? How much do you really love your loved ones? Are you willing to change for your own spiritual awakening and for the benefit of all the beings around you? That's why the Buddha gives us the example of a mother who would risk her life to save her one and only child. To that extent, we need to bring up sati and sapajanya. We need to bring up metta and karuna. We need to practice the precepts. We need to be appamada to that extent. A mother wouldn't second judge. She'll throw herself in front of a train, in front of a tiger, in front of a gun, put her hands in boiling water to get her child out. Do that for yourself. Do that for the people around you by not feeding your patterns. Are we going to feed our patterns even if we try not to? Yes, we are. Reality is we are 90% of the time still. But we need to start 1%. We need to start with a very humble kind of goal. 1%, at least when I wake up in the morning. That few moments when I wake up, I'll have sati. And then maybe a few weeks from then, first 5 minutes in the morning, I have sati. In a few months, the first 30 minutes of the morning, I have sati. The next year, first 2 or 3 hours of the morning, I have sati, right? Next thing you know, 10, 15 years from now, half of the day, you might have sati. But if you never give yourself that opportunity to start changing your patterns in your everyday life, Buddhism is just going to become like an ointment that you put on when your leg hurts, right? I've had a lot of knee pain because I used to be a runner and I never had proper training in the beginning. And when I went to the doctor in the beginning, they just gave me some ointment, And all it does is it tricks my nerve cells, right? To thinking that there's no pain. There is pain there, but since that minty feeling is so overwhelming, I can't feel the pain. So that's what meditation will do for you. That's what popular meditation, popular Buddhism is doing right now. It's the opiate of the masses. It's just there to pacify you. So you don't make any changes in your life, so you don't make any changes at your job, so you don't make any changes in society. For the status quo to continue the way it is. That's what mindfulness and all the meditation and even Buddhism to some extent is contributing to. But we'll just keep on suffering if we continue that way. We need to be radical. We need to be revolutionary in the sense of pavatana. Dhammacakka pavatana. Pavatana, what does pavatana mean? Does anyone know? Polly?
Continue.
Yeah, continue, right? To set in motion. To rotate the wheel of Dhamma. The Buddha says, the monks tell the Buddha, it's like turning something that was upside down, right side up, when they hear Buddhism, right? What do we call this? Isn't that a revolution? It's revolving. Dhammacakka pavatana, spinning the wheel of Dhamma. Isn't that not a revolution? Going against a creator God or against a soul, isn't that revolutionary? All these things are revolution. But the most important revolution is the inner revolution. And we do that by every moment of our lives. We can have an inner revolution by not giving in to these habitual patterns, to these tendencies, to this thirst, to this desire and clinging. Many people, especially where I'm from, in California, very revolutionary, very to the left, right? All of this. But inside, no revolution. Everyone else out there changed. We want the world to change. And it's like, you've been drinking for like 15 years and you still go out and party. You're not a 21-year-old kid. You're doing the same things. Where's that change? Where's that revolution? Right? Or they still are holding a grudge about their father and mother, what they did to them when they were teenagers. You're a 40-year-old person now, and you're still holding on to that. Where's your revolution? Revolution has part of it takes part inside, not only outside. And to me, that's the true revolution. Going against the stream, the Buddha says, right? Going against the current. Not going with the worldly way. Worldly way is giving into likes and dislikes. The unworldly way, beyond the world, right? Lokutara is not to give into your patterns. You can be revolutionary. You can go against Mara. You can go against samsara. Every time you don't give into a like or dislike. You can fight against samsara when you see something and you see that aversion come up. No, that's revolutionary. You're fighting against the system, right? Samsara is a system. It's a net, a web that traps everyone in it. We're all like fish trapped in this web of samsara. But you can begin cutting the net by not giving into it. Yes. So I think I've talked enough. And now I will leave it open for any Any questions or feedback or any clarity that you would like on this topic?
But it was very good. You touch every part of Buddhism.
Thank you.
Bante, this is not a question but a comment about Harris Park. I somewhat agree with you about the break. But just the sheer number of people alone makes it noisier.
Yeah. That's why some people need to be the example. Others will talk, I will not talk. Others will be loud, I will not be loud. Others will move around, I will not move around. Okay? But if others move around, I'll move around because they're moving around. Others are talking, I might as well talk too. Others are loud, I should be louder. Then we fall into this chaotic pattern, right? So those people who have more experience in the Dhamma should be setting the example for the other people. Because a new person comes in, first night at Harris Park, right? Everyone's meditating and then everyone starts, what's going on with these people? They look so serene when I first came in. They all look like saints, and now they're just like everyone else, right? Think about it, because it's open to the general public. Anyone can walk in. What kind of example are we setting, right? Of course we talk. Oh, how are you? How's it going? Oh. And you notice like two people are talking. We'll catch up later. Instead of just doing all of that. Because you do that all day anyways. That is what you're normally doing. And you dedicate an hour and a half to 2 hours to something different, right? And then you want to bring that thing you're trying to get away from there. You bring it back, right? It's like getting the shit out of the toilet and putting it back out and taking it with you. Why? I use that example because Ajahn Brahm has a lot of poop examples too. And I learned that from him. Yes. So you're trying to get away from the filth. Don't bring the filth into the clean spaces, right? We're all going to do it because it's a habit. I've been saying it's so deep. We're bringing it from thousands of lives. So there's that compassionate aspect, right? Of like, okay, people are just going to do what they're used to and normal. We have it. But we also need to recognize that it's not going to change unless we do something about it. So we need to try our best to do something about it. Especially people who have been practicing longer. You're the elders in the community, right? You should set the example. We're very good about telling new people or young people or kids how they should behave. You know, we need to follow our own instructions. If we want the children and the youth or people new to Buddhism to properly practice the Dhamma, we need to do it. If they see us arguing, if they see us drinking, if they see us being stingy and greedy, if they see us watching the news and just criticizing every politician on there, oh, what a dumb person, this idiot over here, that your child's going to see that, the young person's going to see that. Okay, then I could be like that too. Because my grandpa, my grandma, my mom, my dad, my older brother and sister, they're like, so that's acceptable. It's acceptable behavior because they do it too. Oh, no, you should be good. Listen to the monks. I've been teaching Dhamma school for 9 years in my temple. The kids tell me every contradiction that the parents do at home. I don't ask for it. They just tell me voluntarily. And then the parents come and they tell me, oh, Hamdru, you know, my puta doesn't want to listen, this and that. And I'm like, probably because you were having karaoke party last week at your house. You know? Of course they're not, because you're giving two different examples. You're saying one thing and you're doing another. That's the beautiful thing about the Buddha. The Buddha was not like that. He was the Tathagata, right? As he says, he does. As he does, he says. That's why he was the Tathagata. But we're not like that. We say one thing, do another. Do one thing, say another. Right? So we need to set that example. Understanding that we're always going to fall short. So there's where the compassionate part comes. We will fall short. Give yourself a break. Give other people a break. But just try your best. Yes, this is your chance. Please say something.
About changing habits.
Yes.
So when you first became a monk, how was it like? You changed a lot of ways you used to as a layperson, right? Initially, how was your experience in terms of changing ways?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's important to have a very deep commitment or motivation or intention if you want to change your ways. There needs to be something powerful inside of you that propels you to change, that makes you want to change. Right? Without that, it's very difficult to change. That's why when it comes to substance abuse recovery, when you look at the statistics, you'll see that spiritual experiences or religious experiences or religiosity, whatever we want to call it, is like the most powerful thing that works for most people. right? Because some new meaning has come into their life, something beyond them, something powerful, right? That they didn't have before. And then they use that to change their habits, to change their patterns. Things that, we can't do through chemicals or through behavioral changing. For some people, it might work, maybe not for others. But when we have something inside, it helps us. So find something that's meaningful to you. Find your North Star. What's important to you in this life? Who's important to you in this life? What do you value? Many of us don't know our values. We have other people's values, right? Get a degree, make a lot of money, get a house. We're carrying other people. What is important to you? And use that, right? Use the Dhamma to help you get to what's important to you. Then it's easy to change your behaviors because it's something that you want to do. It's not like someone like Buddha coming from the outside. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. You're like, oh, those are all the things that I wanted to do. Right? You're telling me not to do it. It's going to be very hard. But if what you want to do requires certain behaviors, then it's going to be easy, right? It's going to be easy for you to do it. So just it takes a little bit of kind of looking inside and what matters to you in this life, what's important to you. And then focus on that, and then everything else, little by little, will start changing, yeah.
When we have somebody who's irritating or does crazy stuff, or politicians perhaps, or you're cranky, a tad peeved with them, then how do we get to compassion?
Saddam Hussein's son was not born a torturer. Saddam Hussein's son, who did many terrible things, he would rob wives. When they're at the marriage party, he would come in with all his soldiers, take the bride, take it to his house, do all kinds of things, and then bring her back the next day. He would execute people that didn't agree with him. Why was he like that? Was he born as an evil child? Is there something about him particularly that made him bad? No, we know why he was like that, because of his dad. Because his dad, he was conditioned like that. It would be very easy for us to kind of like try to pathologize him and say, oh, he was a psychopath, he had some mental illness. No, he is a normal person. That's the scary thing. That was conditioned by the environment around him. I was in Iraq. I was in the Olympic Stadium, and they had converted a certain part into a torture room, and there was chains, and in there they would have meat hooks, and they would punish whoever they didn't like in those places and hang them on those meat hooks. So I have some understanding of how horrible things can be. When I was in Iraq, I was there when there was the biggest bombing, and it was in Kirkuk, and they bombed when everyone was coming out of the mosque. They had like a little bazaar outside on the weekend, and they blew that place up. Mostly families getting blown up, and we had to bring the children into our base. They were all burned. It was like 30 or 40 ambulances of just burnt children. Not enough hospitals in Iraq. We have to fly them out to Turkey. All these children with their mother. How does this happen? Well, people get conditioned to be that way. People are trained that way. In Afghanistan, where I was too, they would condition these little kids into thinking that by them killing themselves, they were going to go to heaven. And they took these kids and we put them like in a re-education training. When the kid went back home again, guess what he did? He did it again. He tried to do a suicide bomb again. How deep he was conditioned. That kid didn't have, he wasn't pathological. He had no mental illness. He wasn't born with that. He was trained to do that. These politicians, these people, they were conditioned to be like that. That could be me. If I was Saddam Hussein's son, I would do the same thing. I would have. I like to believe, oh no, I'm so nice, I'm so different. No, I'm not different. That's one of the things I love about Thich Nhat Hanh. Has this beautiful like little meditation about the Somali pirate. He says, I'm the Somali pirate who jumps into a ship of refugees, right? And gets that young girl and rapes her. That's me, that's who I am. I'm the Somali pirate. And I'm also the girl who was raped. I'm her too. And then he goes through a long list of all these horrible situations. He goes, I'm just like them. I could be them. Any of us could be them. Why did I join the Air Force? Why did I go over there? Well, my dad was in the military, right? That was one condition, right? I was in the cadet program in high school. Of course, if you're a cadet, you're going to be very easy for you to go into the military, even though there's no obligation. So there was all these things that conditioned me, right? I grew up in a very violent neighborhood in Los Angeles, where my own brothers and cousins were the perpetrators of violence and the victims of violence, right? So it's just these patterns playing out. And once we see these patterns, it becomes very impersonal, right? So we have to kind of, in the same way that I was saying, we have to let go of our identity with our own patterns. We need to also disidentify the people with the patterns that they're doing out there. And there's where the compassion comes from. When we notice, These are just causes and conditions playing out, and it could be me. And in the past, it was me. In the past, I was Angulimala. In the past, I was Devadatta. I mean, even Mahamogalana, one time, Mara appears to him.
Yes.
And he goes, I see you, Mara. And Mara goes, how is it that you see me? He goes, I know Mara because I was a Mara in the past. I was Mara in the past, Mara. That's how I know you. That's how I see you. Right? All of us maybe have been Mara in the past. The devil, boogeyman, right? The compassion comes, right? But it takes training. It takes analyzing the situation. If we just go with our gut feeling, we're just going to keep going. And it's not something that we're going to do overnight. To be realistic, it's going to take a long time to be able to transform our patterns and our views. And so it's a hard road, but just kind of understanding that they weren't born that way. They were made that way. And they didn't get to choose.
Bhante, would you mind if I ask what made your life turning point?
I can't think of one particular thing, right? I don't have a cool origin story, so I wouldn't make a good superhero. I didn't get bit by a spider or anything like that. But one of the things, like in general, one of the general themes in my life was reaching a certain point that I thought would make me happy and then not being happy. Right? So I thought that if I was the popular guy, the very physically fit, sexy guy, the guy with the beautiful girlfriend, the guy with the convertible car, right? The guy with the good job, like all this stuff, right? I grew up in Hollywood, very shallow. So I thought if I had all of that, I would be happy. Did my life become happier? Yes. Was my life more comfortable? Yes. Was it very pleasurable? 100%. It was super pleasurable, right? Very, very pleasurable. A lot of the stuff that I was doing, going to raves, doing ecstasy, drinking, having a great time, many girlfriends at the same time sometimes. Very pleasant. But there was always something that was missing, right? And it was very subtle. You have to pay attention, right? It would happen usually going to bed at night or waking up in the morning or when I'm alone for a few days. Feel something, there has to be something more. There has to be something else, right? And this is kind of what helped me I don't know if this is what led me to become a monk, but this is what brought the feeling of nekamma, of renunciation. I think the feeling to become a monk came more from interacting with monks and seeing them. I think seeing them like, oh wow, I want to be like them, right? So I think becoming a monk came from them, but the wanting to change my life, my lifestyle came from having all this fun and pleasant things and being very popular and still feeling like, like it's not what I thought it was going to be. It's not what I thought it's going to be. But it was very pleasant and nice. I'm not going to pretend like, it was horrible. I was having a great time. But yeah, I think that, and then I think, like coming across my teacher, the late Bhante Punaji, like him, hearing his talks really kind of changed my mind. And then my first meditation retreat that I went on, a 7-day retreat, was also very impactful because I saw how things could be different. And I went through so much pain. It was like an intense Zen retreat in the mountains. And my legs were just screaming the whole time and throbbing. I would go to bed at night and my legs were throbbing the whole night, like this, pulsating. And it was just excruciating. I had cold sweat coming down my face. And then they would tell us, like during the day, once a day, oh, if you like, you can use a chair. In my head, I'm not going to use a chair. I'm not going to use a chair. I had a lot of pride, a lot of mana. I didn't want to. I'm a tough guy from the military, right? I have a 6-pack, all these things. Why am I going to use a chair? That's for weak people. I'm going to fight it. Then the pain became so intense, right? So intense. And then there was a rickety fan. Like the ceiling fans,
Yeah.
But very rickety. And it was annoying. So then I had my physical pain. I had the physical pain, annoyance. And I just reached a threshold where I'm like, I just have to give up. I just have to accept my destiny. That this is horrible and there's nothing I can do. Because I was resisting the truth. I wanted to find a comfortable situation. I wanted to be comfortable. I couldn't accept to be uncomfortable. And then I learned to accept. And when I learned to accept, actually the fan started something very nice. Like a little rhythm. And then instead of following the breath, I closed my eyes and I was following, because usually in Zen, eyes open. I closed my eyes and I started listening to the fan. And I became completely absorbed in the fan. No more pain at all. No annoyance, no pain, no nothing. And I didn't notice it until like maybe that night when I went to sleep and I was like, what was that? what was that? That was crazy. And then the following days, I kept using that little trick, and the physical body still hurt, but I had a different relationship to it, right? And I think that moment, having that insight, that just because I'm in physical pain doesn't mean that I have to be in mental pain. They can be separated. Not an easy thing to do, and not pleasurable, right? But it's possible. And seeing that hope, right? Once you have hope, it changes your world. So I think from like meditation experience, it was that. Then from being around the monks, being around Bhante Punjaji, feeling this sense of renunciation, like all of these things together, right? All these things came together, created the right causes and conditions. And I was like, okay, now it makes sense, right? Yeah, something like that. That's the short version.
It is very interesting because if you are born in a different environment, like in Sri Lanka or somewhere, that you get conditioning, as you said. You didn't particularly had that kind of condition, but you had some kind of very powerful influence to have that changeover.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes we kind of get lucky, you know? Right place, right time. Due to our, we have these karmic seeds, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, the environment gets really good, and the seed's able to sprout. But the seed was there. That's important. That's why we need to do the work to plant the seeds. If we don't plant the seeds, the conditions can be perfect, and nothing will happen. If you don't plant the seeds, even if Maitreya Buddha comes, nothing will happen. The seed needs to be there. Plant the seeds in your own mind, right? So when things do get very nice, the proper conditions are there. You have something. You have something that can come up.
If I may ask, we were just talking a little bit about you last night. Just from my observation, I have come to learn over the past year that you're loud and you're direct and blunt, but also incredibly patient. That's very, very patient. That's my own observation. How do you get there?
I think through just experiencing, both in myself and other people, a lot of pain. When you see a lot of people who have lost all hope, when you see people that have been demonized, and they even start demonizing themselves, when you see people that don't even want to live anymore, it just changes your whole way of looking at the world. There's a deep power in pain, and I think that's why we have that recurring theme in Buddhism of the 4 sights, right? And then also when you pass away, the 4 heavenly messengers with King Yama. There's something to witnessing like this deep pain that kind of makes us more open, I guess. I just want to say, I felt like my mind was very narrow before. And as I've been more exposed to pain, my mind just keeps getting broader and broader and broader and broader and broader and broader and broader. When my mind was very short, very small and narrow, and something uncomfortable or something bad would happen, it would feel claustrophobic. Because you have this anger come up and my mind is small and it's just constricting and no, I can't handle it, right? And I usually lash out against others or get away, try to do something. But now that my mind is bigger, that same anger comes up. Same size, nothing's changed. But now I have all this space. I have all this space, so it doesn't bother me as much because the mind has become very spacious. But it only became spacious because of the intensity of the pain that was inside that forced it. It forced me to grow, right? That pain forced me to grow. I couldn't continue living like this, in this certain way, in such a small-minded, closed-minded way. It would be unbearable. So the conditions themselves, right, in my life forced me into finding another way. And then I was able to open. That's why I'm very antagonistic towards like making everything nice. It's not for your benefit, you know? Niceness has its place, right? Like Sesame Street and stuff like that. There's where niceness belongs. But, you know, out here, it's not the place to be nice. It's the place to be compassionate. And to be compassionate, the Buddha said a mother would have to stick her hands in the baby's mouth and pull blood out to get something out of the baby's throat if he was choking, right? That's a compassionate action. So once you see all this pain, naturally comes this kind of sense of wanting to be compassionate for them. So you don't want to be like, well, first we got to do this, first we got to do that. While you're doing all of this, that person is in pain. And they're making their problems getting worse. It's like, no, get out the scalpel, just cut right away. I don't have time to be nice. You can hate me for it too. I don't need more friends. You know, I don't need to be popular. I don't need all that stuff. I gave up the worldly way. My responsibility is just to share with you what I know according to the teachings of the Buddha. Right? If I don't do that, then I'm not being true to myself. I'm not keeping with, let's say, for lack of a better word, my vow. Right? To be a representative of the Buddha. So I think those kind of things is what kind of has helped me be more patient. I know what it is to be in a sense of despair and pain and all these things. I know what it is. I would want someone to be patient with me. And it's nothing new. It's nothing new, whether it's Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Cambodia, Korea, Japan, Qatar, Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, Mexico, Spain, the United States. It's all the same. It's all dukkha. Nothing surprises me. You tell me something horrible? Okay, yeah. That's just samsara. That's the way things are, you know? That's what I say in my head. I don't tell them that, oh, that's just normal, you know? That's very cold, but in my mind, I'm saying, of course, this is just the way things are. So it's just having that understanding of how things really are and experiencing pain for yourself and then reciprocating, treating other people how you would want to be treated and not being scared. Our fear holds us back from doing a lot of things that we should do. So many injustices in this world have happened because people are scared to speak out, to do anything. Don't be scared. And don't be scared to be happy. Don't be scared to be joyful. Even when the world is burning around you, don't be scared to be happy. I want to share this one story. When I was at Upaya Zen Center about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, we'd have a little kind of group meeting before we would start cleaning up the temple in the morning. And we'd go around, everyone would check in. We'd take a breath, check in. Everyone was sharing something so deep and, so painful. When it would come to me, I would just skip. I didn't want to say anything. Then after like a month, almost 5 weeks, when it was my turn, I said, I just want to say something that I've been wanting to say. And hopefully I don't get misunderstood. And I said, every day since the first day that I got here, I've been so happy to be here. And I've loved every day. But every day, for the most part, everyone here is sharing some tragedy. How life sucks. And I felt that it would be disrespectful after someone says something very tragic that I'm like, well, today's the best day of my life. Like, this is great. I love being here. Like, it might be misunderstood that I'm being dismissive, that I wasn't listening. But it's true. Even when all of you have been sharing all these things, which are unfortunate, I've been happy the whole time. I love this place. I was having a great time. One of them started crying and they said, thank you, Bhante. Please don't be shy to be happy. If you want to share something, happiness with us, share it with us. And one of them says something like, because it gives me hope or something like that, right? That I could also be happy. So when everyone's telling you, you should feel bad. Look at how the world is. Everything's so horrible. You should feel bad. No. How is feeling bad going to help? It's not going to help. When there was 2 people suffering, now there's 3 because you added yourself. If there was 100 people suffering, now there's 101 because you're commiserating, right? And there's where compassion fatigue and all these other things. I don't know what compassion fatigue is because I never take other people's suffering as my own. Instead, I'm joyful because I know there's good news. There's a remedy. There's a cure. There is a cure for dukkha, right? The outcome is positive. There's a positive outcome here. We're not stuck here. So just keeping that in mind, there's where the compassion comes from. Getting in touch with all that. Like, things don't have to be this way. And people can be cured. There is a cure. That brings you happiness. Imagine if you've been diagnosed with some sort of illness and you think you're going to die, and then the doctor comes in and he goes, you know what? There's a remedy. It might take a year or 2, but you're going to feel this great sense of relief, right? Even though the physical pain's there, still, you will feel a lot better knowing that there is a cure. So yes, I feel their pain. It sucks. But I know that there's a cure. And there's where the happiness and the joy and the compassion and wanting to give them the cure, right? The Buddha's the doctor and all of us are the nurses, right? So that's our part, to tend to care for others. The medicine the Buddha gave us, and then we have to care. So being a good nurse, right? I can't be upset with the patient. I shouldn't be like talking bad to the patient and all these kind of things, treating the patient like a jerk. I have to be nice. I have to be nice because that's my role as a disciple of the Buddha, to be a nurse to others. Whether you're a monastic or not, that's our role. We're the nurses. So we need to act like a nurse. We're all in the caring industry. We're all part of that, right? But it's not easy. And you have to also know which environments or situations are very triggering for you, and try not to put yourself in the situations purposely. So some of us may be very good dealing with people who are victims of domestic violence. For some of us, it might be very difficult. For some of us, it might be very easy working with people with substance abuse. For other of us, it might be very triggering, right? So you kind of want to know where you're at and kind of not put yourself in dangerous situations where you might get overwhelmed or get into compassion fatigue or any of these kind of things. So it does take wisdom. We need both the compassion and the wisdom together, right? Those are the two wings of the Buddhism. If it's just compassion, it's reckless, and we start feeling other people's pain, making it our own. We start commiserating, and we might even get violent. To remove this person's pain, I'm going to hurt this person to get rid of their pain because you're the source of their pain. So we justify. Violence can come from that. When we get blind compassion, you're willing to do anything. A mother bear to defend her cubs will kill any of us here, right? Even though we had no idea of killing the bear, just our mere presence is a threat. And she's doing that out of love for her babies, not because she hates us. The bear doesn't know who we are, She's going to kill us for the love that she has. That's the unwise compassion. Compassion with no wisdom. So we need also the wisdom. And if it's just wisdom without the compassion, then it's all theoretical. It's all very cold, right? It's just very abstract. And it leads to inaction. That is just the way samsara is. Pain arises and pain ceases. Yeah, that doesn't help. That doesn't help anyone, And you see that in Buddhist circles a lot. This over-intellectualization I can't say the word right now, but of the Dhamma, it comes off very cold. I've seen it many times. Like, that's the way things are, that's the nature of things. Things will come and go, etc., etc. And then there's no compassion, and then it becomes useless. It becomes a useless Dhamma. It just becomes like Silabhata Paramasa then, rites and rituals, because it has nothing behind it. So we need both the wisdom and the compassion together, and then we're able to move through this world in an easier way in which we can do what's best for us, for others, and also be able to tolerate extreme pain and also tolerate extreme happiness. A lot of us have an aversion to happiness and joy because we feel that we don't deserve it, we're not good enough, we haven't earned it yet, right? We have an idea that we need to suffer in order to be happy, that we need to do a lot of work in order to be happy. You don't. That's the cultural narrative in order to justify holding resources from you. Don't buy into it. Happiness is something that is your birthright from the very beginning. And it doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the inside. But what time is it? I haven't been checking the time. The clock's over here? Yeah. Okay, because we have something later. Yes, okay. So I think that's good for today. I think there's still more food, so if you want more snacks, you can go ahead and fill up your tummy after this. Yes. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Deepika and family and friends and everyone who made this moment possible. So just remember this for the rest of the day, that at least today you have done some meritorious deed and you shared your merit with others. You supported other people in their Dhamma practice, right? And then by the power of this merit, may we experience happiness some point in the future until we reach the eternal supreme bliss and happiness and ecstasy of Nibbana. Yes.